Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here today with Matthew Mottola. Matthew, why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit about your background and what you've been up to lately?
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Chris. So, Matthew Mottola, based in Atlanta, if anyone's in Atlanta, but live on a plane. And so it's been a crazy trip of SF, Seattle, Singapore, all over. So I'm the CEO of Human Cloud. We are this weird advisory slash technology company that connects enterprises to flexible talent solutions. We've been in the freelance slash flexible talent world honestly since 2012, and we really have been in this business of is it new or new to you for 10 plus years now. And I would consider this taking a not novel but misunderstood technology and helping enterprises, which usually means the executives and the team leads, helping them understand really how to drive their functions forward. So, yeah, that's me. Thanks for having me, Chris.
So, tell us a little bit of the pieces of your journey to get to what led you to go, oh, I gotta focus on this because it's not like there's a degree program out there, although you did go to Babson for your master's work, and they are one of the leading universities in the world for like innovation and entrepreneurialism. So I actually do think they probably, gave you clues about it, but like most places don't have that as a degree. And certainly there's no waypointing out there. Like the Wall Street Journal isn't going, here's a career path you should pursue and you should build something like what you're building. So tell us like a little bit of your background, and then how did you go one day, this is what I'm gonna do, this is the answer to what I've been like, the scratch that I've just had to the itch that I've had to scratch.
Yeah, so this itch has been around since 2012. It's funny you brought up Babson. So actually, Babson was my excuse to be able to tell my friends and family that I was not totally off the deep end, and that I was at least getting a master's in something. But it was actually my excuse to go build a freelance related business. And so for me, I had sort of what I would call the catalyst, but then didn't really realize it till I saw the comparable. So in 2012, I started freelancing. Didn't know it was called that. I was just consulting, and we talked before about it, Chris. So I had a Division One college baseball scholarship, so I could not do a full time internship, and so I literally just went to kind of survival mode of all right, well, I need to get paid. This was like the pre NIL days, so like technically I had a big scholarship, but I didn't get any money, right? So I still needed money for food and everything. So I literally just went business to business in my small town and just said, hey, how can I help? And I picked up a couple clients, and it was all related to business, accounting, and finance. And so it was something like, hey, let me help look at your books. Yeah, I know I'm a college student, but I also know that you have a lot of stuff you can't do and you can't afford to, right? So that was like my catalyst, but I didn't know that it was different, to be honest. I was like, okay, like one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have a full-time job, and like this is just my way to pay for rent, right? And I loved it. I did absolutely love it, but I didn't know I loved it. So I then went down the traditional path of majoring in accounting and finance, you know, being in the top echelon there and getting into a big four firm. And I thought like, hey, this is it, right? Like, oh my God, I got this internship that I'm so blessed and privileged. And within 2 weeks, I was like, oh, this is just not going to work for me. Now, it wasn't the company's fault, right? Like, I want to make sure I state, like, this was not like I don't know, like the company was wrong. This was a really good company. I just knew that since I was exposed to that sort of freelance, flexible work type environment, I was like, this hook is not going to go away. And so at the time, this is why I bring up Babson. So I was doing a master's at my prior university, and I wasn't telling anyone. I like stopped going to class and I started to both freelance to pay for myself, but then also build a freelance related business. And that was a freelance platform. And then I went to Babson and I said, hey, you guys love entrepreneurship. I love this freelance economy thing. Can I just pay you for a year to come and do your, accelerated MBA? So that was kind of my foray into the industry side. And that like first block really all comes down to this idea of working for yourself, but not building like this big business, more so just having a direct relationship with clients, owning your outcome, seeing your impact. That worked better for me as the individual worker. And then on the flip side, when I then kind of sat on the company side of how the hell do I build a business, right? I was like, well, why would I go hire a full-time employee? Right? So I, was exposed to that. And then along the way, I mean, that was like 2012, 2016. That was like niche sort of fringe innovation. I mean, I could not go tell my parents, even a lot of professors didn't understand it. I could not go say, hey, there's this thing called freelancing, right? But then I did in 2016 or 17. I went to Silicon Valley, joined sort of like a rocket ship startup that it's called Gigster, top talent Gigster. And Dreesen put money into both and said, who's going to win? But so that exposed me into, oh my God, this is so much bigger than my niche little consulting practice in my small town. This is huge, right? And then the next block was Microsoft, where Microsoft came calling and said, hey, that cute thing you're doing called freelance. And I was like, what do you mean cute? Like, this is revolutionary, right? This is life changing. And Microsoft's like, no, it's not. Like, this is actually a cute little startup thing. So then the next sort of Lego block was going to Microsoft, helping build their internal freelance program, as well as building the external product, which was enabling our customers to do what we were doing, meaning just working with freelancers at scale across the company. So yeah, that was like my first aha, and I can't stop chasing it, to be honest. We published a book called The Human Cloud Book in 21, started a venture-backed company that was like a freelancer operating system in 2020, sold it in 21. So like I've kind of done all the things in this space, but I can't get away from this itch of like the world needs flexible talent.
It's funny because when I observe the way the world's starting to hear this notion of flexible talent, it's always through a combination of a pain point and a profit motive. And the way I've always thought about it is actually precision, access to precise talent. There's a book I read back in the 80s called The Long Boom that talked about the way technology and the internet would enable people of any size, shape, color, preference, whatever, with a skill to be reachable and to take a lot of that bias out of the equation. And therefore the future of work would look very different, and it wouldn't be dependent on a 9 to 5, high rise model solely, there'd still be some of that. When I look at the way that enterprises in particular and clients that we talk to look at it, it's always a profit motive. And the beauty is it's actually, it works together if it's done right. And when it falters is when it's profit over like value to all. Talk a little bit about how you help people think about that, and where you're finding pockets of light around that you can shine on, shine a light on, because I think that's the way you help people adopt and think about a different, better way. Because if you can do good and make money, it's a win-win that people will rush to. But talk a little bit about like where you're seeing, things you can hold up as an example of like a good way things are working.
Yeah, so I'll start by defining flexible talent, then I'll go into sort of what we see on the company side of who's really leaning in and seeing success. But it's funny, so if we were to define, and we've gone through so many terms, Chris, like freelance, gig, on demand, liquid workforce, back in Accenture called that in 2016, on demand workforce, right? So many different terms. We stick with flexible, and we call it sort of flexible in the human cloud because it really is about that agility and elasticity of on the company side, when I need to go either, get something done, scale up a team, whatever. It's actually not even like full-time versus independent. It's more so around, I need an elastic network that can go up and down. And then I also do need that flexibility of, well, it might work for a week, but it's not like full-time employment, right? Where it's like, hey, I need this person forever now. So we call it flexible. We usually say it's digital first. And so it's usually either sourced through a platform, paid through a platform, but the more it's reused, meaning your flexible talent network, the better it is. So it's, yeah. But then, so that's how we define it. Literally as simple as Usually, if it's external, if it's independent worker, then we would consider under that flexible umbrella. Now, here's where it gets sticky. Here's where it gets easy. So remember in university, Chris, when like you're sitting at your first week initiation and the person gets on stage and is like, look to your left, look to your right, one of you is not going to be here. And they tried to scare you, right? Of like, oh crap, all right, I better be good. So we kind of bring it and we're like, we do the same thing. We're like, hey, look to your left, look to your right. One of those individuals is probably going to be independent and you're going to have to work with them in order to get what you need done. And it's actually better that they're independent. And this individual could be a fractional CMO, a fractional chief product officer, right? Like the skills don't matter, anything like that. But we're at a stage now, especially in the US, where between 30 and 50% are currently working independently. And it doesn't matter who. It could be the first year, the 10th year, or the seasoned executive. So that's flexible talent. In terms of who's doing it really well, to make it simple, we break it into like this, what we call a 3 horizon framework, where horizon 3 is disruptive, horizon 2 is strategic, horizon 1 is transactional. The transactional is easy. It's better, faster, cheaper, right? So you can easily quantify, look, we have 40 to 90% cost savings. We can get access within days. The strategic is a little tougher because you're like, usually, hey, is this accelerating some business unit or giving a business unit skills they don't have? And is that business unit better because of it? And then disruptive is usually like, we have a brand new business just because we leaned into this. And going backwards, if you look at like horizon 3 of disruptive, a lot of Americans, we just had our April 15th deadline of taxes, right? Mm-hmm. One of the best solutions out there is the TurboTax Live. That's just a customer-facing flexible talent network, right? That they created into a feature, and it's massively disruptive. We have a slide that actually shows like the stock price before and after, right? And it's like, so that's disruptive. Strategic is usually something like, hey, this business leader was given approval for up to 25 million to go hire flexible talent. And that might mean that they go to an awesome platform like yours, as long as they're dedicating towards flexible talent. And usually what we see there, like some big wins, is Airbus, their sales team, can have a custom demo on the airplane, graphic demo, in under a week because they have a pre-built CAD software, freelancers that are ready to go within a week, right? That's massive for a sales team. Likewise, if you are the CRO, CMO, you name it, the ability to access the skill sets, right? Of like, hey, we need marketing automation. Let's not go hire a full-time person, spend 6 months doing this. Let's get the expert, right? So usually strategic is at the team level. Then the transactional is the easy one. And what's funny to me is most companies are already over half external. It's just that their view of external, in my view, is pretty inefficient. It's usually procurement led. It's usually about vendors and preferred vendor status. Mm-hmm. It's usually about MSAs and contractual terms and indemnification and business terms and stuff like that. But if you look at flexible talent, the results blow the doors off of most external, current external talent solutions. And so that's one of our big messages is like, hey, if you're spending right now $5 billion a year on external talent, 1 billion of that better be, flexible talent to show what the rest of the external talent org should be doing.
I love that. One of the things that we love about being a member of the Human Cloud team and fans of all the work you're doing is the market map that you've created, because it brings the early view to organizing a very chaotic and nascent marketplace. I mean, because you do need a platform. You do need to be discreet about, like, one of the way we think about platforms and solutions is, what was the origin point? Like, why did they start? Like, for an example of that would be like ClickUp. ClickUp started as a workflow management tool, not an accounting tool, not a marketing agency solution, but a workflow management, just generally. And so it's really good at that. Jira also does workflow management, but it's really for the dev world, right? So it's kind of leaning, his tendency is there. So the flavoring of where things come from a lot of times means that they're really good at that, not as good at something else. But the organizing principle of the map, super, super helpful. How accurate do you think it is in capturing your vision of what is today and what it's becoming? And I know that it's got so many logos on it. Like, tell me a little bit about how you arrived at it and what you're thinking about it as you look to the future.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say, and for you listeners out there, if you've seen it or you're looking at it right now, what it does is it does break it up into 14, or actually, no, sorry. It breaks it up into a couple different segments, of which there's 14 different segments in the flexible workforce that we're tracking. And we are tracking around over 2,000 solutions in the market map. I think it only puts like 100, maybe 100 to 150 on it. So it really is just a tiny little snapshot, to be honest. And the big things about it. So I would argue, like I said, so it's 20%, I would say, of the solutions. Actually, sorry, 10% of the solutions are on that market map. What's important, though, is not necessarily the logos, but rather how to know who to turn to and how to bucket it. Because if you are, we use the example of like a chief marketing officer. If you're a chief marketing officer, you shouldn't just go to a marketing platform, but you also shouldn't. So you should understand that, like, if there's something in IT related, well, there's an IT marketplace out there. If there's something AI, there's an AI marketplace. But at the same time, there is marketing focused platforms that focus on exactly what we need. Now, not to get too kind of meta, but if we think about why do I need a platform, right? A platform helps you scope the work, find the talent, and re-engage. Those are like the three things that they do so well. That's scoping the work. If you're to go contract with like an individual freelancer or even a big individual freelancer, good luck getting to the place of really being able to really draw up what's needed over the course of 3 to 6 months, right? So that's one. The finding, also, good luck. There's plenty of like AI recruiting tools, but the reality is, Chris, someone like you knows how to look at good marketing talent better than any recruiter in the world would. And then the last thing is the knowledge recap or capturing, where the platform, like the Model B or you name it, they need to know you. You need to trust them and they need to trust you. And so when you scale up, scale down, or try to do something next, they're able to basically be an internal team for you. So that's the big thing. Like when you look at that market map, the first reaction is going to be, "Ooh, that's a lot of logos. I don't know, and this just seems like work," right? And like that's the first reaction. You're not the only one if that's your reaction. That is actually normal, and you're totally like your peers. The next step, though, is breaking it down into, okay, what am I really looking to accomplish? Is there a skill set that I need? Is there a problem statement in front of me that I just don't know? And that's where you're able to start to sort of segment it. So you could say, hey, we really need to access this market. How the hell do I do this? Well, all right, there's a great logo called Model B, right, under the creative and marketing side. Just go have a call with. So but that's the brief. And I like how you asked the accurate. 100% accurate. No, 97.5% accurate because it's too expensive to optimize above that. But it's got around 10% of the total solution.
So you speak a lot and are highly sought after for helping the organizations, enterprises in particular, like see their way to this change. What are some of the companies that us out in the world would be surprised are embracing it and that are kind of, it's like you wouldn't think, really they get it? Okay, cool. And then what are some that are starting to, the light bulb's starting to light up? Well, obviously, I don't want you to talk bad about anybody because that's never good. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there around the way they're coming to the realization that this is what they should be thinking about much more completely than a return to office mandate, which is a whole nother dilemma that we probably won't talk about too much because frankly, it's a tired area in my view.
Yeah, so I would start by saying every company. And what I mean by that is if you look at the credit card statements, you're going to see some sort of freelance platform there. You're going to see Upwork, you're going to see Fiverr. Then if you even want to get a little more granular, go search up the agencies that you've worked with. And most likely there's going to be a lot of 2 to 5 person agencies that are really just a network of freelancers. So the quick answer is like every company is. The question is just, are they being strategic about it? And then do they have some sort of like centralized ownership to make sure that the company-wide flexible talent success is there? Now, the beauty of our podcast is I can tell you some public names. Some I'll have to obfuscate, but I'll give this one. It's funny. I'll give you a quick story, Chris, because of when I was leading Microsoft's product, we would always have the EBC Center. And I will say, like, some of my early customers at Microsoft were logos that obviously I can't say publicly, but I was like, oh my God, this is one of the coolest things ever. And so I'll give like one quick one. They weren't a customer, so I'm okay saying it. But I remember going to the EBC Center and seeing the Vatican on the monitor and being like, whoa, right, whoa. I'll give your listeners one hint. One of my best customers was a religious organization, and they were like the most technology centric I've ever seen.
I love that.
You have to kill me to tell me which one. But one of the best public use cases right now is actually the U.S. government and specifically the U.S. Department of Defense. They have a platform called Gig Eagle. It's a collaboration between some of the various like Army, Air Force, those. And the goal of it, the way they say it, is they say that it's a whole of nation collaboration platform, which that one I was like, oof, that's good, right? You just skipped like 5 years of education. That's phenomenal. And then they would add to it and they would say it's a whole of nation collaboration platform that uses agentic teaming and data analytics to get the exact right people in the exact right place at the right time. And one of the examples they used, which I was like, oh my God, was I think it was Hurricane Milton, the one that happened in Florida. Hurricane happened. And the reason I bring this one up is usually people will say, this works great in a remote context, or this works great on a short-term gig or whatever. And this example blows all that out of the doors. Hurricane Milton happens. I mean, communities are just level devastated, you name it. So what do they need? They need engineers. They need a lot of heavy machinery, a lot of trucks, and then they need the actual workers. And so, I mean, under a prior, relationship, they'd be sending emails, maybe making calls, hoping they had sort of that Rolodex. Because they had the talent platform, they had one button that they could say, this is what we think we need. And this is the beauty of it too, is like, you don't need to know exactly what you need, right? This is not like a 3-page job description. This is literally just put your problem into the world. So this is what we think we need. And within hours, there was like heavy machinery, engineers, you name it, that were on site. And so that experience being like, whoa, right? So we always tell companies like, hey, if the US DoD can do it, then I'm sorry, but your little security issue is really not that big. Others, though, that are pretty good. There's one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Their customer experience, there's 1,000+ person freelancer network all around the world. It makes more sense because if you think about who's most incented to take that call, get the person to convert, it's usually the person who they're the business owner of that. One quick example. Another one that's actually really interesting too is a healthcare company that if you think about, because healthcare is one of those that people always say like, oh, there's no way we need to have so many, lines of security and employment, coverage and all that. So this one, if you think about what happens during a recall, they need to go to every single hospital and either take it off the shelf or fix it. Right. Same thing. Who's most incented to do that? Well, a network of self-employed individuals who love, Medicare devices. So they have a pretty massive gig network that enables them to turn around uh, recalls in a way that far surpasses. So there's like some quick ones, right? Like healthcare, tech, and then there's others though that you would never know about. And so, for example, I'm sure with you, Chris, if you were to say, "Hey, Delta, Coca-Cola, yada yada yada," all these companies that we're working with, if you were to say, "Can we talk about our flexible talent success story?" They would be like, "Nope," right? And if you were able to talk about it, they would probably say, "Yeah, we'll talk about it, but like, can you not mention the whole like freelancer, flexible
Yeah.
talent, independent contractor thing? Because then our legal team's gonna get mad." So those are some quick examples, but there's so many that just you'll never hear about unless
Yeah.
you talk to you and I.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I do get we experience more and more companies that are using uh, contractors, freelance, and as you said, half the time the organization's not even aware of it, uh, and in part because there's layers of layers in the business model and the delivery. One of the things we talk to clients a lot about is what problems do you have, or what needs do you have that are recurring, and what are those things that you never seem to get around to, that like just talk to us a little bit about the things that you never seem to get around to, and we'll solve how to address it. And you can put it in your roadmap for when it's the right time, because it's going to take some of your time, but our goal is to remove the friction towards the answer and the process of actually solving it, so that your involvement really needs to be yes or no on things. And is that starting to mature into the answer you're seeking? Other than that, you don't need to do anything. And it's funny how when they stop and think about it that way, even to the degree of like challenging them in some cases to think of it as almost like a reverse auction. Like, here's a problem. What if we actually threw it out in the world and let people tackle it? And I think for us anyway, we're finding that's a way into the conversation that otherwise we wouldn't get. Are you experiencing that or seeing that as well? Because I think, again, the objections around paperwork and confidentiality and legal contracts and what are they in California, and do I have to worry about the laws there versus are they from Kyrgyzstan, like there's all kinds, like, how do we pay them? Are we paying them fairly? Is it fit our ethos? Like, instead, if we can get them talking about the solution they want,
Yeah.
and then letting us actually deliver a approach to that, we tend to find that they're more receptive to it, and then we'll work through it. But tell us, you see a lot of different shapes and forms of this. Like, what are you seeing in that regard?
We do. I think I want to call out an aspect of this, which I do think is a generational shift in that the way that we look to solve a problem, I do think there's some sort of generational divide in terms of, being okay with jumping in and not knowing versus having to know and have that plan. And the reason I'll give that I think is kind of the reason, it's going to sound so basic to you and your audience, is if you look at how I did my school projects and how you did your school projects, they were fundamentally different. You probably had to go to a library, get a book, properly source things, right?
Look
Well,
at the encyclopedia. That's old.
I simply went to whatever search engine you name and just searched, and within like 5 minutes, I had the problem. And this is actually why my consulting business was so easy for me, was because I was mostly Google searching stuff, and the clients would be like, how'd you come up with it? Right. And it sounds so simple. So I do want to call it, I think there is a generational shift. Now, the impact of that is, and this is going to sound really bad, Chris, I'm 31 or 32. I always forget. But so I'm now sort of in that class where there's a lot of leaders like me that finally have some budget, right? And the way that we are used to making decisions is we're totally okay with paying an expert to teach us or to give us an answer rather than thinking we have to know it all. And I'll never forget when I first started at Microsoft, that was actually one of my biggest cultural like learnings and total disconnects was at Microsoft, the overwhelming culture was like you as a PM, there's a periodic table and you have to master every element. Well, when I came in, I only knew one element, and it was how to access freelancers. That was literally all I had. And I was like faking my way to being this like technical person that was really like a basic salesperson that like self-loved technology. So I want to call it like that is one of the biggest generational shifts, is that there is now a leadership class that is open and available to just trying things out and usually a smaller ticket size. Now, how does that really get impactful from what we're seeing with companies? With companies, there's two challenges that we always have, and one of these challenges that we give to them is find your most rising leaders or promising leaders, literally give them $30,000 and see what they come up with. What cracks me up about companies, especially large ones, they spend so much time like creating OKRs, creating roadmaps, you name it, and then they act like they want to be startups, but the reality is they can't be. And that's totally okay. But a way that they can start to have the speed, the flexibility, the agility is by giving the younger leaders budget right now, rather than making them wait 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years to end up going through the typical, headcount to budget process of leadership. That's one of the biggest challenges we see. Now, in terms of like what this looks like from a company perspective, it's all over the map, to be honest. We do see a lot of, usually it is 10 to 15 year executives that have enough social credibility in the org to be able to say something and be able to do it and spend a little budget with it. And then they usually prove the results in a way that's totally unrelated to freelance or flexible talent. And then between like $1 to $50 million, usually around the 10 range, you start to see like a procurement or an HR or a CFO show up and be like, hey, what are you doing? And the business person literally is like, I don't want to tell you, right? Like don't take this away from me. So then they have to start to strategically invest in a flexible talent program, which looks like, seamless experiences, compliance controls, security controls, governance, all that boring stuff. But it is all over the map. But I challenge every single one listening to this. What if you gave like the 28 to 35-year-old $30,000 and literally just said, show up next quarter with a good idea or just with a better workflow? And I guarantee you they're going to blow you away.
I love that. So you're a super inquisitive guy. Where do you find the things that turn you on and that add up to the seeing the future, seeing around the corner stuff that you have done? You've built a business around helping people see the future. And part of it, I'm sure, is because you're out there a lot and you're actually talking to business leaders, and your podcast has great, guests and in very diverse range of folks all over the world too. And the global view, I'm sure, helps. But like, what are some of the turn to places and approaches? I mean, it can't be just Google. Like, where are you getting all your good stuff?
This is probably not the right answer. And it's definitely not the right answer. I got lucky early on. And what I mean by that was I was exposed to this before most people were. And so honestly, for the past 5 years, it's really just been nurturing my network and like a second degree at a time of someone that I find interesting. Now, with that said, what we usually see, what I find most interesting, to be honest, is when I find a leader like you who could, and the way that I put it is like founder market fit, who could easily sell paper clips in your space and still get meetings. But you've seen the promise of flexible talent prior. And so when you and I talk, you have a level of marketing and brand and business expertise that I simply don't have. I can tell you about all the flexible talent platforms. I can tell you about all the models that have been tried. I can probably tell you how AI is going to impact it, and same thing like tariffs and yada yada. So okay, I got that. But Chris, you're going to teach me about marketing and brand in a way that I really, really, really don't know. And so it really has just been kind of like an incremental battle of being curious. One of my mentors, I will never, ever, ever forget this. I always asked him, like, his name is Ken. I'm like, Ken, how in the world do you close these deals, build these companies, whatever? Like, how do you do this? And you'd expect him to, I don't know, maybe like give me some like Dalio principles and like a book that he read. And he just looks at me and goes, I just walk through life like I'm a 4-year-old. And I'm like,
Love that.
right? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I keep questioning, right?
Yeah.
And
Why?
so that
Why?
to me, that's the only principle that I've said works. I do think what is interesting though is if you look at my entrepreneurial path is I've been laser focused on one issue forever. And so I don't think I'm that creative. I just think I'm wicked scrappy because like I knew since I was 16, like, hey, I have to make $1 tomorrow or I can't eat. So I just think I've been like scrappy related to flexible talent. But I don't know, Chris, what about you? What would you say is your areas for inspiration?
Well, I definitely spend a lot of time observing human nature. And one of the things I look for is ideas on the rise in culture. And the interesting thing is what every brand can affiliate with those movements. And the ones that do it and do it with authenticity and clarity and accessibility and vulnerability rise to the top. And and then I think of all brands just as all people. You want to have a different conversation with them that builds on the last one rather than saying the one that you heard last over and over again. So, we spend a lot of time helping our clients think of what's the next step in that conversation, or frankly, when to be quiet, because there's a lot of brands that you just like, can you stop? And, but being a student of human nature is kind of innate to me, and finding ways to do good for all is really what turns me on and motivates me to think differently about like, and part of it too is just intellectual boredom. I get bored very easily. So I always want to try and do something differently with a better effect. And, in the freelance economy and the future of work, I don't want to do what I did 20 years ago. I don't want to build work the same way. I don't want to, like, I've done Super Bowl commercials and I loved it. And it was amazing at the time. And I remember saying to everybody, I did that one, like a $4 million commercial. And now if I had to do that again, I'd be like, ah, really? And that's crazy, and maybe I'm spoiled brat about it, but I'm much more interested in what's next and how I can continue to learn and grow and frankly spread the things I've learned with others, because I want to give back, because I've like you, I've gained so much from my network and from people I know, and want to continue to give back to people around me to further that, because to me that's what makes humanity great, and there's so much richness in that potential. So that's definitely a core focus.
And I actually, one funny thing, and I go back to like, I'm just so damn lucky. I grew up in Boston, where it's just like it's very direct place, and it's a very much like you're there by 7:59, 8 o'clock is late, and so I think that has been so helpful in my like at least entrepreneurial journey is just like I don't know, like I've been getting made fun of since I was like 6 years old, right? And like that's how I'm used to getting shown love. And so as an entrepreneur and as an executive and you name it, like literally our job is to throw something out in the world, get beat down enough to find the pocket of value and then to capitalize on that value. So I think like that's one area of luck that I'm like, oh my God, thank God I grew up in Boston in this small town called Newburyport. But I did learn something in the past actually couple of months, Chris, I think you'll appreciate. And this was, a mentor really grilling into our business. So basically, and I think every executive can do this right now. So his advice was list out every single one of your clients and then in less than 3 words, label why they work with you. It was, and this is where it became really impactful. So as part of like human nature and that kind of stuff, right? Because I know we've probably all read the Cialdini books and you name it. But so this is probably the Boston side of me. I'm very, very direct, and I think everyone needs a carrot and stick, right? And so for a human cloud perspective, when having to do that exercise, our carrot is credibility, right? And our stick is FOMO. And like this is just giving you the inside scoop of human cloud, too much sausage making. But I think every executive and entrepreneur can apply that practice of literally labeling out less than 3 words. Why do people give a shit about you? And then having to identify, okay, well then what's your carrot and stick? And then this is where freelancers, flexible talent, fractional, whatever you want to call them, that's where they come in because they're going to get you to the promised land. And so if you believe this is your carrot and stick, okay, what's your marketing strategy? What's your tech strategy? What's your product roadmap look like? Get a world of experts that are out there for you.
I mean, what I love about that is, and we think a lot about this and try and guide people back to it, is that it's simple. I mean, it's just absolutely, it's hard to do actually. Like 3 words, that getting down to the 3 words that are real and accurate is hard. But once you've done that and you've got that and you step back and accept it and really live up to that, I mean, it's incredibly powerful. And everything can fall out of that, right? You can really double down on all the things that build that up over time. I love that. So if we're going to wrap up here, thank you so much for all you've shared. It's been fantastic. As a turn the corner question, Matthew the movie, what movie would you be if you were going to be depicted in a movie? Like, what would you be? The Matrix? Or you? Like, what's the Matthew movie?
I've never been asked that question, Chris. It's a very interesting. I'll give you my life dream, and you'll see like how unambitious I actually am. My life dream is literally to be living in my hometown with a tractor in the front yard and the ability to just sit on my front stoop and just chill, right? So whatever movie enables me to be in my hometown with a tractor, I know it's really weird and random, but that's the movie I'd pick. It's probably and to be honest with you, Chris, there's probably no cell phones. There's probably not even like an internet connection. It's just like good food, got the dogs, got the kids, got the wife, whatever.
Love it.
I don't know. So we could pick a movie.
Field of Dreams meets, something like that. Yeah, I love it. That's really cool. No, I can picture it, actually. I hope to come and visit. That'd be fantastic. So Matthew, where can people find you as we wrap up here?
Yeah, head on over to humancloud.work, not .com. Chris, the dumbest move I ever made was picking that .work handle. It is terrible, like email deliverability, all that kind of stuff. I thought it was so smart. Fun fact, the person that owns humancloud.com was actually one of the earliest freelance marketplaces that scooped it up. And in case that person is listening, on June 24th at midnight, I will be on my computer hoping that you're manually renewing it every year. But so, too much info. But humancloud.work. And then head on over to LinkedIn. I'd love to chat with you. Pretty simple, Matthew Mottola. Or if anything, just ask Chris. And I'm sure, Chris, you'll say, yeah, head on over. And I'll kind of pull the reverse and say, every listener, if you're just listening, please email Chris ASAP. Because when it comes to marketing and brand, damn, you need strategic partnership. And that's it. So, yeah.
Matthew, you're the best. I love it. Thanks for everything. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Chris.